And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson, and welcome to the beginning of our series with the presidential candidates. Joining us this week is Washington Governor Jay Inslee. Last time we were with the governor earlier this year at Seminole Springs in Agora Hills, my hometown, as he toured the Woolsey Fire disaster zone. The former congressman is running a campaign mostly focused on the single issue of climate change. Governor Inslee, welcome to The Issue Is.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Yeah.
So let's talk about climate change for a moment. You say this is the most important issue. You're the only candidate that's solely focused on climate change. But what, from a policy perspective, are you going to do differently as president on the climate change issue that the other Democratic candidates wouldn't do?
Well, the most important thing is that I have said that this has to be the first job of the next president. It has to be the first, foremost, and paramount duty of the next president of the United States. Look, we know for scientific certainty we're the first generation to feel the sting of climate change, and we know we're the last generation who can do something about it. So this is an urgent matter, and as a governor, I know to govern is to choose. And that means you have to set priorities. I'm the only candidate, I'm the only candidate who's saying clearly this has to be the job number one. Now, you said something, I'm solely running on this. I have a lot of things we've done in my state that I want to bring to the country: the best family paid leave, the best minimum wage, the first net neutrality. We have a lot of things we need to do, but we know that this is the most urgent matter that demands a national mobilization of our intellectual and skill-based assets. And so I am the candidate saying that, and I've got the chops to do it.
So, but from a policy perspective, what specifically are you going to do differently on climate change?
Well, what we're going to do is what we've done in Washington State, which is build a $6 billion wind turbine industry. We now have approaching 50,000 electric cars on our roads. We're building jobs like crazy in our clean energy tech development fund. We now have a bill that will pass in the next couple days that will give us 100% clean electricity. We're weaning ourselves off of any coal-based electricity. These are accomplishments that we can put on the board. Look, a lot of people talk about things. I've got them done in the state of Washington now. We've done good things in California as well with Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom. But this is leadership on the West Coast that is focusing on the most important thing.
Let's talk about one thing a lot of environmental activists talk about is things like a carbon tax or gas tax in order to change behavior when it comes to climate change. Do you think we need more taxes in this country in order to fix the climate change issue?
Well, I think in one sense we need, one thing I know we need to do is to end that huge raiding of taxpayers' pockets of $27 billion of subsidies going to the oil and gas and coal industries. It does not make sense that those hugely profitable industries get $27 billion of money from the citizens and taxpayers. That needs to end. Now, you might look at that as some way of a carbon pricing system because they should no longer get those subsidies. That's obvious. I think we should not take off the table consideration of carbon pricing systems. But what I've learned in my state is we can do huge things even without a carbon price, of 100% clean electrical grid, of new net zero building code standards for energy efficiencies, of incentive programs for people to drive electric cars and help solar. And by the way, I saw something so exciting here today, a company called Pick My Solar here in Los Angeles at the Clean Tech incubator system right now. We're helping people get solar panels. Individuals need solar panels, residents, consumers need solar panels on their roofs, a lot more than the coal and gas industry need $27 billion of subsidy, and I'm a candidate saying we got to make that change.
As you mentioned, there's a lot of other issues that you're interested in. Let's talk about health care for a moment. In the state of Washington, your state is moving towards a public option, which essentially means that government helps pay for your health care as a public option. Should a public option be the national model? Should it be something that states do on their own, or should that be sort of a national priority?
Well, I'm proud of our state because we've had one of the more successful rollouts of health care. We have 800,000 people now have health insurance. And I think the public option is the right thing for states to do. So I would be the first governor to pass a public option. I hope we do that in the next couple of weeks. Not a done deal yet, but I hope we do that. Federally, I think we need to move forward towards a universal access. We want every American to have access to health care. I think we do that.
Access is different than coverage.
Well, have health care. You're right. Good point. Let's just settle on that. We need coverage. We need health care. And by doing that, to have a Medicare, what you might call a Medicare for all who want it right now, so that we can move forward, give people that option, but also reduce the age limitation for Medicare. I think that's a good start towards what we need. Now, we also need bargaining authority so we can reduce the costs of pharmaceuticals, so we can reduce this cost. We've been very successful in our state keeping down medical inflation. So I think, again, having been a governor to actually get things done in healthcare, I think that's going to be a benefit if I'm given this honor.
One of the things you've done as a governor is sued the Trump administration effectively several times. There's been a lot of fights between the Trump administration, especially several Western states, over the issue of immigration. The president recently suggesting that sanctuary cities should bear the burden of some of these migrants and that detainees should be sent to sanctuary cities. You have a lot of sanctuary cities in Washington. California is a sanctuary state. Should we bear more of the burden of that issue than other places?
Well, we should do a couple things. One, we should follow the law, and we have insisted that the president follow the law, and that's why we've sued him, and that's why we've won 18 times in a row. It seems to me we all ought to agree on following the law. And we have caught him out 18 times in a row, and he can run, but he can't hide from us in Washington State, number one. Number two, I think we ought to recognize that, look, we have accepted refugees in my state. We've had doctors, lawyers, physical therapists from my family who were refugees from Vietnam at one point. And so we don't fear that. And when I've said that Trump cannot threaten us with this, because we're not afraid of it, right? So we're not afraid of refugees. I was actually the first governor to say that we ought to accept Syrian refugees. This is a country based on immigration. I was the first governor to stand out against the Muslim ban. I believe we ought to take care of our dreamers. Look, we got dreamers in California and Washington. They're going to be great doctors and lawyers and business people if we just let their dreams blossom. Then we need comprehensive immigration reform to deal with the 11 million people who are our neighbors, who are working or who are coaching soccer. We need those things. And what we don't need is this silly vanity project of this wall on the border. We need smart efforts to really have humanity and law enforcement on the border, both of which are important.
Let's talk about another one of the big stories in the news right now, which is the Mueller Report. What is your reaction to the redacted version of the Mueller Report that we're now seeing?
Well, I think there are three conclusions that ought to be disturbing to any American. Number one, it appears clear that the Trump administration was interested in trying to benefit from Russian interference. Number two, it is clear that the president tried and tried and tried to stop this investigation. He failed largely, but I think we ought to be disturbed that he was making an effort to obstruct justice. And the third is that I think Republicans and Democrats ought to join in to think that, you know, a president ought not to lie to us all the time. And what the report concluded, that this is a person who has not told the truth. And to me, that's got to be disturbing that that has not been something that he expects to be able to lie to us all the time. So those three things, I think, ought to be disturbing to anyone.
Mueller did not answer the obstruction of justice question. He presented a lot of evidence and maybe left it up to Congress. As somebody who was in Congress, do you think that the president obstructed justice, and do you think that Democrats in Congress should be moved forward with impeachment?
So I believe that we have to be very vigorous to get to the bottom of this in the U.S. Congress. Basically, Mueller said instead of the criminal justice system resolving this, Congress needs to. And he did not make a conclusion. And if Donald Trump tries to get up there and say how somehow he was let off of the hook, that'll be yet one of the 10,000 lies that he has told. Because now Congress needs to really get to the bottom of this in a vigorous investigation and see where that leads. And impeachment should not be off the table. This should be continued to be this investigation. We ought to have Mueller testify in front of Congress. We ought to get down and look at all his records. We ought to get his tax records and his business records to find out who he's really working for. You know, he ought to be working for us. And frankly, we don't have confidence in that right now. So we need to continue this. This is not the end. It's not the beginning of the end. Maybe it's the end of the beginning. He had a response to this about what this meant to his administration. We got to make sure we get to the end of this trail.
Let's talk about 2020 politics for a moment.
Close to my heart.
We're still a ways off from the election. But you're in the polls right now are pretty far behind. It seems like some people have their moment here or there. You know, everybody comes up. But how are you going to pull this off?
Well, it's up to the American people, but what we're offering is a vision statement based on two pillars. Number one, that I am singularly committed to attacking climate change, and that is unique, and singularly capable of doing it, since I'm really the only candidate who's co-authored a book on it, started the U.S. Climate Alliance, have had success in my state. That's unique. And the second is that I've been a very successful governor and helped build the #1 economy in the United States because we've done the first net neutrality, since we've made huge transportation investments. People talk about getting teachers a raise. I got a 12% teacher raise on average in my state. So I've accomplished things rather than just talking about them. So I'm offering those two things to the American people. And, you know, I'm kind of where Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter were when they started their races. I'm the person who is not well known, but I've been an underdog in many races. I've won legislative, congressional, and governor races starting for where I am right now. So I'm happy to be on the hunt. And I got to tell you, I've been very actually inspired by this because I have found people are very committed. They have not given up hope in America. Mm-hmm. They want to see America that has a more equal economic situation. They want an America where people have health care. And they want an America that will defeat climate change. I can do both.
And of course, you're about to have the issue as bump.
Pardon?
The issue is bump.
There
now
you
that
go.
you've been on this show,
the bumped issue.
You're about to see that coming.
The issue bump. No, the issue is tsunami.
Yeah, the issue is tsunami. Let's talk. We like to play some games here on the show, so we got a couple games for you. First one is called the name game. This is, we're going to say the name of some well-known figures, and we'd love if you could come up with one word or a really short phrase that comes to mind. First thing that comes to mind, right? Okay? So here we go. President Donald Trump.
History. A blip in history, to be more exact.
Vice President Mike Pence.
A similar asterisk to the blip in history.
President Barack Obama.
Incredible talent.
Vice President Joe Biden.
An interesting figure.
Oh, there you go. Potential competitor. Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks. And potential presidential candidate.
A potential huge mistake, and I hope Howard does not make that mistake. It would be sullying his business career, and anything that I believe that would make the election of Donald Trump more likely would be a heinous result.
Senator Kamala Harris.
Very interesting senator, and I don't know her well, so I can't give her one word. I think she's a multi-dimensional person. I get to look forward to getting to know her better.
Another senator running for president, Bernie Sanders.
Bernie's formerly a really good basketball player.
As are you, right?
Well,
as am I.
Maybe not as good as Bernie. I don't know.
Let's do one more game. This is called personal issues. Enough talking about everybody else. Let's talk about you. Okay, so we're going to put 30 seconds on the clock. Some lightning questions that'll be kind of fun to get to know you a little better. So here we go. Favorite superhero?
My wife, Trudy Inslee. Worked for 46 years.
Last book you read?
The Uninhabitable Earth.
Favorite meal?
A broiled cheese sandwich.
Ooh. First concert you went to?
The Mamas and the Papas, 1964.
Good one. Dogs or cats?
Oh, well, listen, you should never answer that question running for president, but I got to say dogs.
All right. Favorite author?
Herman Melville.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. But we do like to play some music on this show, so we have a special song for you. This is Justin Timberlake's Man of the Woods, because we know you like the climate, you like to be outside.
I appreciate it. So I was hoping for Jimi Hendrix, Purple Haze, but anyway.
Well, enjoy a little JT.
All right.
Up next, our panel weighs in on this and a whole lot more. Back with more of the issue is right after this. And now's your chance to get to dance. Do you like a little JT every once in a while?
I've been barred by both law and custom from dancing in public.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.